It's actually happening, and as rookie camp is getting underway in the first game, Easton Cowan absolutely shined and showed that he was the most dominant player on the ice, and more reports are starting to escalate surrounding Easton Cowan making the Toronto Maple Leafs out of camp. So to break down those reports and discuss what it can mean going forward, as this is turning into one of the biggest stories for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So stay tuned to all that in this episode. But before we do, if you're a part of the 71% who aren't subscribed to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We're trying to surpass Habs Digest. They just hit 14,000 subscribers. We're on their tails. We can't have Habs Digest beating us. So make sure to hit that button if you enjoy the daily Leafs content. Darius, this is very exciting. Obviously, a couple days ago, the Leafs and Habs had the rookie prospect camp game, and Easton Cowan, among others who we're going to discuss today, like Fraser Mckenzie, absolutely showed out. And Easton Cowan showed that not only was he the best player in the Leafs team, he was the best player on the ice, and it was pretty clear with that. And as that began to get underway, more and more tweets are coming out, even just reports from writers, from even just Leafs reporters are saying this guy has shown this offseason, has shown incredible work ethic, and he's going to be potentially making the Toronto Maple Leafs out of camp beyond the 9 games. Now, let's see there's a lot of stuff to go over with that. So let's just start with this. So Easton Cowan's summer trainer, Trevor Williamson, on Cowan's drive to make the team and how he's grown this summer. It's hard to predict where he'll end up, but the size he's added shows he's definitely capable. His maturity, thought process, attitude, and work ethic are all in place. He could definitely be ready. The skill, maturity, and decision-making are all there, so I wouldn't be surprised at all. He's gotten way stronger. His speed, his power, everything's gone up. He's crushing it. So Darius, we both watched the game against the Habs. It was clear that he's made some mistakes. He's still a young player, but the way he bounced back from those mistakes was the bigger thing for me, and it's really exciting. He looks like a completely, not necessarily a different player than when he was a prospect, but he developed a lot even in the short time since we've last seen him.
Yeah, he made a ton of mistakes in the game, but I think that's a good thing because it's a prospect game, right? And I feel like he was trying different things that I haven't seen him do before, even in London. So if you're going to do that, do it there, right? The games don't matter, and you're just trying to see what you can do against other prospects and how you fit in, right? So I love that from him. He was trying new things, and honestly, they talk about his speed. His trainer was talking about his speed and all that, his strength, right? It was his poise for me in the game yesterday, like on the power play, just the way he was taking care of the puck and always putting it in a good spot. So he's matured a lot, right? Like we haven't seen him skate through the summer. Last time we saw him was with the London Knights, and obviously yesterday he's playing against the Habs prospects, which a lot of them are pretty good, but it's a mixed bag, right? Like it's not the actual Montreal Canadiens team, so it's hard to tell where he will kind of fit in if he were to make the Leafs, let's say. But he was the best player on the ice, and I think the second best player was Fraser Mitten too. It was a great combination there. So he showed a lot yesterday. I thought like he looked patient with the puck. He scored a couple nice goals too, and put up a few points. That was a good line too. They were playing with him with Gerbenkin, who was formerly Gribyankin. We were talking about on the channel. I guess he changed his name and pronunciation, moving to North America. But him specifically looks like he's maybe a step behind. He might start the year with the Marlies, but Fraser Mitten and Easton Cowan look very, very good, and Leaf fans were very excited. I saw online yesterday and on Twitter, and for good reason. They looked really good.
Yeah, and we've been talking about, obviously we know Fraser Minton made the team out of camp last season and did the 9 games, and he looked a little bit out of place at the NHL level, which is understandable given everything. But when it's coming to Easton Cowan, and we'll discuss Fraser Minton in a minute, I mean, like you said, there were still a lot of mistakes, but you mentioned it. The poise he showed, the Leafs obviously won the game. It doesn't really matter if they won or not, but the point was Easton Cowan looked absolutely phenomenal. And as this starts to heat up, the rookie camp and his training camp is very, very close, he's starting to get more and more conversations surrounding Easton Cowan, just around him. You can see another article here. Maple Leafs reveal expectations for Easton Cowan ahead of the prospect game. The first step for Cowan and the Leafs youngsters comes this weekend at the Bell Center, where they will meet the Canadiens prospects on Saturday, of course, yesterday, as well as today. And in order for it to be Toronto out of camp, John Gruden, who will run the Leafs bench in Montreal, knows what he wants to see from Cowan's start this weekend. About all that Gruden can say for certain is that as coach of the Marlies, he won't be guiding Cowan beyond the next 48 hours. Cowan wants to make the Leafs. He's a competitor. Coaches are going to want guys they can trust and get put in certain situations. And that's why Easton Cowan is the biggest conversation here. Obviously, Gruden, the coach of the Marlies, he can't coach Easton Cowan after this weekend. So today's the last day that he can coach him, because obviously he has to be sent down to the OHL. Easton Cowan, that is, if they decide to not keep him after the 9 games. We all assume he's going to play the first 9 games, but Toronto Maple Leafs see what he can do. But Darius, the discourse on Twitter from fans is put him on the third line, let him ride it out the whole year. I'm not saying it doesn't make a ton of sense, but it would be interesting. But if they don't make any other additions, they obviously have Max Pacioretty. maybe there's a world where Easton Cowan, one we didn't think was too possible, if he really shows out, and you've been on that train the whole time, you said if he shows out like crazy, they might force the Leafs' hand, and he might start to do that, especially with the way everybody's gassing him up. It's almost like they're preparing us to add him to the Leafs this year.
Now, before I get into what I think Brad Treliving has created with this year's training camp, I will say that I think Easton Cowan will make the Leafs right away to start the season. I think he'll play in the first game and he'll get his 9 games. And I think it's more than likely he'll be sent down to the OHL. Now, in saying that, I think Brad Treliving this year has created this culture coming into training camp where anyone can take any spot, especially on the left wing. But, when you look at Easton Cowan, I think if he shows out, there's a world, absolutely, like you said, he can make the Leafs team full time. But if he's going to spend the entire season that he stays up and they burn a year of his ELC on the third or the fourth line where Craig Berube wants more identity, I think it's a waste of time for not only the Maple Leafs, but Easton Cowan's development. I feel like he can, go back to London or another team if London decides to trade him and go for another championship, work on his defensive game. There isn't much for him to learn in the OHL. I've said it a bunch of times, but still, it's just the weird rule between the NHL and the CHL, right? So if he's going to be just, tagging along on the third and fourth line and get scratched sometimes, I'm not sure that's good for his development. And I don't think Craig Berube would want him there either, right? He needs to be put in a position to succeed. So I think there is a world, like when training camp comes, if he outperforms everybody who's in that spot, he might make the team, but we're just going to have to wait and see for training camp. But one thing's for sure, he did look really good yesterday. And we're just going to have to see, like Gruden said, he's not going to Marley's camp. He's going to the Leafs camp. He's fighting for his spot. So it's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, it's a good point about identity. I mean, they're signing a lot of veteran guys. They're signing, obviously, Max Pacioretty to hopefully add some identity, which was a bit lost last season and under the new coach. And maybe there's a world where Cowan could add some identity if he starts to get his feet wet. But that'll take a while for, obviously, as a rookie to be doing that. And if you miss the game, some notes from the game surrounding Easton Cowan. Best player on the ice for both teams. Had a very bad turnover in OT, which we all kind of saw by getting 2Q, which is expected at the prospect games. You can go ahead and take a little bit of risks. I'd like to think that at the NHL level, he probably wouldn't play as but maybe he would, and maybe that's why he's so good, is that he takes risks and he's able to be such a good player. And this tweet kind of gained some traction. Minton being able to catch Hudson, tie his stick up, body him off the puck, and make it stretch pass is unreal. Kid's got a future as a third line center, which is hilarious. End to that tweet, gassing him up and then saying his future is a third line center. I mean, his ceiling could be a first line center if we're being realistic, but maybe this upcoming season as a third line center is a realistic goal there. But yeah, he really showed out. And before we do wrap up, anything you want to touch on Fraser Minton, because he kind of got lost in this conversation. And he used to be one of the centers of conversation last season and last offseason before Easton Cowan really started to take over the prospect talks. I agree about Nikita Gubyankin. He's probably, if I'm pronouncing that right, he's probably going to play for the Marlies this year. But Fraser Minton's another one. He played last season for the Leafs for a few games, didn't look phenomenal, but he's starting to get up there too. The Leafs have a big young core coming up, along with Ben Danford as well, who was battling injuries here now in this training camp, but they have a big young core coming up here.
Yeah, and I believe Fraser Minton can play in the AHL this year, so that's another wild card too. And he's a center, right? And the Leafs, depending how the lineup shakes out, right? We've been talking a lot about the left wing position, but if he's a center, maybe he has a better chance of making the team, right? We're just gonna have to wait and see. But Fraser Minton, to me, I mean, last year he made the team at a training camp. He looked kind of out of place, but they wanted to give him some games there, and they ended up sending him back. This year, I mean, yesterday, he looks like he has been working his butt off all summer. Like, he has hands now. He had a nice shootout goal, and then he kind of taunted the crowd too. Same with Easton Cowan. I love to see that. That was good. I love the confidence. But yeah, he looks great. And the speed, the fact that, like you said, in overtime, Cowan turned it over and he chased the guy down from the blue line, right? Like the offensive blue line, caught him, bodied him off the puck, and then made a stretch pass the other way for an offensive
Lane
chance.
Hudson, nonetheless.
Yeah, Lane Hudson as well, which is the Montreal Canadiens, one of their best prospects. So that was great to see. And then a stretch pass, like I said, to Easton Cowan again, who almost scored on the same play. It was a pretty crazy play in overtime. So he looks like he's made big strides, and he could be pushing to make the Leafs this year as well. And maybe he'll see some time. I'm not sure what the situation with that is, like what their plan for him is. Maybe they want him to play really high in the lineup on the Marlies or something like that, right? And maybe just stick him there. But another wild card too. Like, we'll see what he does in training camp and where he fits in potentially to the Leafs lineup.
Yeah, and ultimately this is going to be a huge story as the rookie camp finishes up today, and then you have training camp very, very soon. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news. But let us know what your thoughts are on all of this, whether you're talking about Easton Cowan, Fraser Mckenzie. Let us know who impressed you the most in the game. And like you mentioned, being able to do that stretch pass and then catch up to Lane Hudson was great from Easton Cowan. And hopefully he continues to play this well. But that'll wrap it up. Let us know in the comments what you think. Thank you guys for watching.